Well, if you close your eyes on the latest happenings in Washington, D.C., you've missed a lot. Lawmakers narrowly voted a government shutdown. 8 House Republicans joined with Democrats to oust the House Speaker. And then lawmakers were unable to pass a new farm bill before that expired at the end of September. For this week's Crop Talk, we're going to be discussing the impact of the expired farm bill with Extension Policy Specialist, that is Dr. Brad Lubben. There's a lot to talk about, as I kind of teed up in our introduction today. The fact that the House doesn't have a leadership seems like the most pressing topic at the moment.
Right. We may be on the road to a new House leader based on some votes amongst the House caucus, the Republican caucus. That person, Steve Scalise from Louisiana, may have garnered the majority support of Republicans to be nominated to be House leader. We still have to watch and see, perhaps yet this week, whether he receives a majority of the entire House to assume the new Speaker role. But that's only step one. We need a leader in the House to actually start to do things. There's a whole lot to do before we get to a farm bill.
One of the things has to do with funding the different agencies, U.S. Department of Agriculture being one of them. Bring us up to speed of what's happened up to this point and where we stand.
Yeah. You know, the appropriations process has been difficult. There's a history of it always being difficult. But there was essentially a promise earlier in the year that all the appropriations bills would be considered in regular order, independently. The agriculture bill was moving through the House Appropriations Committee and really disastrously fell apart and did not move forward. We ended up with an appropriations bill for ag that did reach the floor and was voted down. So ag is back in line with many, many other departments waiting on appropriations. And all we accomplished before the end of September was to push the deadline off 45 days. A continuing resolution gives us more time to debate. It doesn't promise that the final answer is any easier.
What was in that bill that led to its failure on the floor?
You know, there are many things about the whole legislative process, and even though it's appropriations, there's oftentimes policy issues that are at the root cause of continuing and lingering debate. A key issue in what was the Ag and FDA appropriations bill, but a key issue related to spending on food assistance. And that's a fight that was actually fought back when we were debating the debt ceiling back in early this year. There was a compromise made. Part of the compromise may have led to Speaker McCarthy's ultimate ouster, but there was a compromise made that there would be cuts on the food assistance side, but not as severe as some in the right wing were pushing for. That compromise got us a new debt ceiling and basically kept the government functioning. But then it simply raised the ire, and the next bill up was the appropriations bill, and we fought over food assistance again. If we put the issue to bed in the appropriations process, we'll probably find out that we're fighting over it again on the farm bill just as soon.
Well, speaking of the farm bill, the deadline that we're always told is September 30th. Well, that date has passed at this point.
That's right. The 2018 farm bill did come and go, and it expired at the end of September. We now live in a limbo phase because there are some programs that are actually authorized with mandatory authority and funding, like crop insurance, and they continue on unaffected. There are some programs that are set to expire, but by virtue of the Inflation Reduction Act, some of the conservation programs were extended for several years of authority. There are some programs that we might particularly think of, like commodity programs, and while the authorizing language technically ran through September, they authorize support for a crop year. And so the 2023 crop is covered. It's the 2024 crop year that's the first to be affected if we don't have new legislation. That first 2024 crop is milk that's harvested on January 1, 2024. That's the real deadline that we have to get something done.
So between now and then, lawmakers have the opportunity, they could pass an extension, kind of kick the can down the road. What's historical perspective tell us about the outlook for that happening, and how long would an extension be?
You know, it's quite possible to imagine an extension, and it's quite possible that that's the most likely outcome at this point, because a real debate on a farm bill still has to wait in line behind the appropriations process that has another 45 days or 35 days or so of debate yet to occur. And then the conflict in Israel, amongst other things. There are always fires, or in some cases bonfires, to put out in Washington, and the Farm Bill is going to have to wait its time to get even some consideration. That suggests that time is really running short to make substantial changes or reform or to try and coalesce around some compromise language. That leans more and more towards the most likely plausible scenario is extend current legislation, and then the debate is 1, maybe 2 years. Extend it 1 year and we fight over this again in the middle of an election year. Extend it 2 years and it's a brand new Congress that will take up a farm bill reauthorization. So there are big questions left, but sometime between now and the end of the year, we're going to have to figure out which path to take.
Let me wrap up with this question because it's one I was discussing with somebody this week. Why every 5 years do we have the farm bill? At this point, it's been in debates. Why is it not longer policy?
It is by nature, by history, that it just seems to be every 5 years. It's not always perfectly every 5, but 5 is about a number that says we pass a farm bill for the times that we're in. And sure enough, in 2018, we passed a farm bill, and we were in a period of time when prices were lower, and farm incomes were a little bit less, less prosperous than what our recent farm income numbers have given us. We passed a farm bill for that kind of market. Well, since that time, commodity prices have risen substantially before the recent pullback, but so have production costs. And the same safety net we passed in 2018 at these prices doesn't really protect us if prices are up here and the safety net's still here. And so periodically, every few years, whatever we passed looks outdated. Time for change. And so we continually come back to new farm bill legislation generally every 5 years.